evening and welcome to Mountain Bears. I'm Aeson Knight, and with me tonight is the Cubby with the mostest, Cubby Techy Joe. How are you, darling?
I'm doing good. How are you this evening?
I'm kind of hanging in there, kind of like in a half bear mood, half ready to sleep, half ready to scream mood. It's October ish. Um,
Well, it's October. It's officially October. We're 6 days in. It's been
yeah,
almost a week.
debatable. Um, I don't know. I
Hey,
think I'm ready to
Brenda.
hibernate. Hello, Miss Brenda. How are you?
Hey, Devin.
Good evening, Devon. What you doing?
Oh yeah, what you drinking? What we doing?
Yeah.
Like, come on, it's Spooktober. Like we even have a story ready.
Yeah, let's run with that story.
Alrighty, so at least 115 improperly stored bodies discovered at Colorado funeral home. Fremont County Sheriff says it was horrific. All right, an investigation into the Return to Nature funeral home in Penrose in southern Colorado began on Wednesday after a report of an odor. When investigators with the Fremont County Sheriff's Office gained entry to the business, they discovered more than 115 bodies improperly stored there. At the time, the sheriff requested assistance from the Colorado Bureau of Investigation and the Federal Bureau of Investigation. There have been a lot of questions and concerns expressed by the community, especially those families who entrusted their loved ones to this funeral home. Our priority and our focus is on the family, said Fremont County Sheriff Alan Cooper during a news conference on Friday morning. We are committed to finding answers for the families as quickly as possible. Cooper said that the area searched in the funeral home, located at 31 Werner Road, is over 2,500 square feet. Without providing too much detail to avoid further victimizing these families, the air of the funeral home where the bodies were stored was horrific, said Cooper. Fremont County Coroner Randy Keller said that a local disaster emergency has been declared due to the circumstances surrounding the investigation. He said it is going to be a very, very lengthy process, possibly lasting several months, and that forensic identification, including fingerprints and DNA, will be conducted to notify those families as quickly as possible. The loved ones in this facility will be treated with the utmost care and respect, said Keller. Our hearts go out to everyone impacted by this tragedy, and we will work to get those families the answers they deserve. The sheriff said there have been no arrests as of Friday, and that the focus of the investigation right now will be on the deceased and their families. Cooper said that investigators have been in contact with the owners of the funeral home, and they are being cooperative so far. Keller didn't discuss details of the scene where the various remains were found and said it was too early to determine if the remains found were designated for cremation or burial. It is a very tragic situation. There are a lot of decedents there, and I don't really want to go into the scene out of respect for the family, said Keller. The FBI said additional field response teams will be dispatched to Penrose, along with specialized laboratory teams from Quantico, Virginia. This will include our technical hazardous response team and our disaster recovery team. These are teams with additional training and specialized equipment that serve to process scenes of national magnitude, to include the response to 9/11 and major airline incidents. So they will be coming in the next few days, said FBI Special Agent in charge uh, of the Denver field office, Mark Michaelik. Additional information from the Fremont County Sheriff's Office. The Fremont County Sheriff's Office is asking that family members of decedents who utilize the Return to Nature funeral home please send an email to 23-1941 at fremontso.com. Please leave the best contact number and time to call in this email. We will respond to each email. If you do not use email, then you can contact the Fremont Emergency Management call line. So I don't know that our audience necessarily needs that, but this is a great article from CBS News, and is literally entitled At Least 115 Improperly Stored Bodies Discovered at Colorado Funeral Home. Fremont County Sheriff says it was horrific. So if you need more information because a loved one has been handled by Return to Nature Funeral Home in Colorado, go check that article out.
Yeah, what's scary is they're supposed to be doing green burial, which I'm all for green burial. Pine, but
Right, but that requires the burial part.
right.
As in, it sounds like this funeral home is so either understaffed or overworked.
Right.
Like, as in, there's a normal amount that a funeral home can handle.
Yeah.
And either they were suddenly inundated, maybe their natural burial has unfortunately created more demand than they can serve.
Right.
And they have continued to take on providing services that they couldn't. Or the scarier part may be this may be a funeral home that is just not very well ran.
Right.
Because we've seen that happen as well.
We have. I mean, at least they found the owners.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, the one in Georgia, I don't think they ever knew the owners.
Oh, good grief.
Right.
Well, and it sounds like this situation was so bad that it may be questionable because Brenda's asking, how could they stand working there? One, it may be so bad that may be the whole problem is no one was.
Right.
It may also be a situation, and it's kind of unfortunate to say, working with the deceased.
Mm-hmm.
To an extent, there may be a loss of ability to even notice how bad it is.
Right.
Because once you smell death, it's kind of all the same.
Right.
It's sort of like working with sewer systems. Is once you smell sewer systems, you don't really smell sewer systems anymore.
And I'm sitting here doing the math.
Mm-hmm. Oh, talk about angry spirits, says Brenda. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, Devin had gallbladder surgery today. I will certainly agree. You are sore. That stuff that hurts.
Yeah.
So yeah, much like Brenda, we hope your recovery is quick and uneventful.
Right.
Oh yeah, beware of fried food and soup for a while, says Shannon. Yes.
Yeah.
Beware everything. There's a list.
Yeah. No
cabbage. That's your immediate. Yeah. No. There's a whole list. Like stick with your soups.
Yeah.
Stick with your broths.
Uh-huh.
It's a lengthy recovery process. It takes a while.
It does. But no, I'm doing the math here, and if it's only 2,500 square foot, it was half filled with bodies.
At 115 bodies, yeah, I mean, but that depends upon what we're talking. Are we talking about like we ran out of freezer space? We had, and I mean, this is getting a little graphic, but like we ran out of freezer space. We just had bodies lying down the hall and tried to cut the AC down and just like hang in there while we catch up. Or are we talking about like more horrific cases we've seen where they're pulling bodies out of the attic and the crawl space?
Well, and my question is where? Why were they doing this? Where was it?
Mm-hmm.
You know.
How do you mean where? Sorry. Like where they were storing them, or
yeah, like
why this is an
crawl
intense
spaces
search?
and attics and back room closets.
Well, I mean, it's kind of degrees of are we talking about like an unfortunate incident?
Yeah.
Because we kind of saw this start with COVID.
Mm-hmm.
Of the unfortunate incident of funeral homes and just the sheer volume of deceased. And like, you know, we're putting cooler trucks and stacking bodies in them.
Right.
And it was like we're doing everything we can as fast as we can, and this is not meant to be an indignity. We're trying our very, very best.
Well,
but we've also seen funeral homes that were literally just taking the money and running.
Yeah.
and just like embalm them and shove them in the attic.
Right.
And cremate them improperly because it was easier to cremate than to bury. It was less work.
Right. And a lot of people were, we've had a lot of that go on. We had, we saw them burying over on Hope Island in New York.
Mm-hmm.
But maybe we need ask the mortician to get on a plane immediately and go help in Colorado.
I'm pretty sure she'll probably be covering this one. She may not show up to Colorado, but she may I'd say this
Right.
is going to be a story she covers,
Right.
probably a little later down the road. Because if this doesn't end up in a court case,
Right.
Because we're not talking about there was a couple of body mix up.
Mm-hmm.
Because again, it's horrific to think about, but there are accidents that happen. It is a business. Things go wrong.
Right. Well, it's like the one the funeral home director in, I believe it was Maine, that just got overran.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. Like that's a horrific incident.
Mm-hmm.
Is that this wasn't someone trying to be inappropriate.
Right.
It's just, what do you want me to do?
Right.
Like we're up to our ears over here.
Right.
Like, and there's nothing I can do.
Right.
Like, all I can do is what I can do, and there's nothing more I can do.
Right. And the state refusing to send payment for burials, or and he's like, I can't move the body.
Yeah. Like, cut me a check. We will take care of this.
Right.
But I can't absorb the expense. And
right.
wait. And that's part of the business side of it. Is there comes a point when it's like, we would love to properly handle your deceased.
Right.
We wished anyone else felt the same way.
Right.
And unfortunately, that does result in some ugly situations.
Right.
That families would rather probably not know about.
Yep.
Ultimately, and it's granted, we all have kind of an ick when it comes to dead bodies, or most people do.
Yeah.
Like we like the cute narrative we got as kids about, will people die and then they go to the funeral home where they're really respectful and make sure that they're clean and ready for burial. And then they handle them really respectfully.
Right.
And it's a lovely narrative. And probably about 95% that's what happens.
Right.
Or more importantly, it's close enough that you can ignore the rest.
Right.
Because it skips, like, you have necrophiliacs that get hired by funeral homes. You have, which, I mean, that's just kind of, where do you work? As a necrophiliac, you go work at funeral home. You have people that have been doing this job for so long and hate it that they just don't do the dignity and respect part anymore. It's just another corpse.
Well, and see, here's the other thing is, I think I agree with as mortician in her statement that we've took death too far away from us.
Mm-hmm. Well, and it does when we find out that this pretty narrative we have about how you treat the deceased.
Mm-hmm.
Because we all kind of cling to that and follow that.
Right.
The minute we depart from that, pardon the pun, unfortunately, the minute we depart from that narrative,
right.
We get very angry very quickly, and very horrified, and the ick is strong.
Right.
That how could you do this, and what the hell is wrong with you, and you're a monster. Like it's a quick slope.
Right.
From like, you're the person who, you're a funeral home director, you're a mortician, who's wonderful and awesome, and thank you for being so supportive during our time of need, to like, well, you're basically Dr. Frankenstein.
Right. And
Like it,
well, but at the same time, in my view,
Mhm.
and this is probably a weird view, it's like the family, if they die at the hospital, you never see them until they're in their coffin. Then you have to debate on whether, they're put up right and all that. I think that really should be, however, you know, like I don't know, bathing them, getting them ready, making the choices. One, I don't think you should be allowed to make choices. You should have to commit to your choices yourself for your funeral before it's time. Like there should be a law that says at age 35 you have to plan your funeral.
I mean, I don't think that's necessarily a horrible idea for people to pre-plan, although we've seen a lot of issues with like pre-need
Mm-hmm.
arrangement abuse,
Right,
which does make it scary.
right,
That, because basically it's an insurance policy
right.
that gets issued, and it locks in rates that if you're 35, you may not use that for 40 years.
Mm-hmm. But
And by that point,
it shouldn't be left up to the family in grief to decide what to put them in, if you should put them in. You know, because I don't know. It always seems to me like they always try to upsell you, and it's like, in my opinion, you're getting burned. Put them in a box. Cardboard, great. It burns faster.
well, and again, it kind of goes back to this. We have a pretty view of what
Mm-hmm.
death should look like,
Right.
and how we treat the deceased, and it does get exploited.
Right.
I mean, at the end of the day, it is a business.
Right.
It is a business. Um, and sometimes you have to really juggle out the idea of, is this really exploitative?
Mm-hmm.
Is it someone intentionally trying to provide someone the most respect possible?
Mm-hmm.
And okay, so yeah, it may pad the bottom line just a touch.
Right.
But it also allows that funeral home to go on and operate, you know, while, like, if everyone shows up for the cheapest funeral possible,
All right.
like if you're in an economically depressed area and everyone's doing payment arrangements after the fact for a funeral,
Right.
and they're choosing the cheapest options possible, and you're not really sure if you're ever going to get your money,
Right.
and payments are always late and everything like that, it can potentially be a real problem for that funeral home.
Right.
Like if you're talking about a funeral home in an affluent area where most everyone pays in full, either as pre-need or as at the time of death, then they can afford to take some hits
Right.
and have a couple of people that just don't, pay up.
Right.
But frankly, once you do the service and they're buried,
Right.
there's not a lot you can do, because disinterring someone is actually harder
Mm-hmm.
and uglier
Mm-hmm.
than like repossessing a couch
Yeah.
or repossessing a car. Like,
Exactly.
you don't show up and disinter someone because they missed a payment.
Right.
But when we're talking about funeral homes in economically depressed areas, um, it becomes a bigger question of, so what do? You
Yeah.
just keep eating it, and then you wonder why the class of service gets lower, and you wonder why they can't keep employees because the payroll didn't get met.
Right. But I also think that it should be federally regulated.
Mm-hmm.
Because they're not. They should be.
They're not. They're yeah. The funeral industry is self-regulated, and even at that, like, there
Right.
are state boards, but those are comprised of private entities.
Right.
So other funeral home directors are deciding for funeral home directors what their standards are.
Yeah.
And this is the governing body that you report incidents to, and then they self-decide. And it's like, I know in West Virginia, it's been called a very like non-solution.
Right.
Like it barely meets. They rarely sanction. They rarely even reprimand.
Yeah. And it's ridiculous. All right. So let's move into a story I found really interesting. Um,
Okay.
for our Hollywood gala, the double life of Rock Hudson. Let's be frank, he was a horn dog.
Yeah, so this is from The Guardian, and it's a great article, and we really didn't want to like go into reading the article because it has more to do with a basically a biopic about him.
Yeah, that's coming out.
Um, yeah, that's coming out, which I'm sure will be great, and I can't wait to see it.
Yep.
But, um, so one just a snippet from the article though is the matinee idol's death in 1985 changed the public's perception of AIDS. Yet in life, the Golden Age actor was anything but an activist. So originally, the working title for this was Rock Hudson, Accidental Activist.
Mm-hmm.
And like the creators of it kind of got quickly to the point of, I don't want to call him an activist because he wasn't.
No.
Like this was it, like you said, there was heavy emphasis on the words accidental.
Right.
Like, but more importantly, it's an insult to actual
Right.
activists. Because that wasn't what happened.
Right.
Basically, he came out ahead of a leaking story.
Right.
Was just, we're gonna grab the bull by the horns, and we're just gonna put ourselves out there, and we're gonna control the narrative.
Well, and I think he controlled the narrative about everything. Because
Mm-hmm.
everyone saw him as the playboy, the heartthrob,
Well,
the
apparently he was. It's just if you think he only was a heartthrob to
Mhm.
women, you're
Right.
wrong. And I don't know that like there's Rock Hudson falls in that category of there was so much cover up trying to separate fact and fiction
Right.
is really difficult
Right.
because there were stories being released and created and made
Mm-hmm.
specifically to sell him as a straight actor and make sure no one figured out he was anything but.
Right.
But then it was an open Hollywood secret that he wasn't.
Right.
But then there doesn't seem to be like a clear like Rock Hudson was gay. Like, and sometimes people jump to that is that like, well, if he wasn't 100% straight,
Mm-hmm.
clearly the icon of masculinity and heterosexuality that he was portrayed as,
Right.
he must 100% go to the other camp.
Right.
And it's like, I don't think it
Right.
was that clear cut.
Right.
But trying to sluice out what was real, what was fantasy,
Mm-hmm.
what's and we see that we've seen a lot of that when we try to retrospectively look at different famous people.
Right.
Is that all we can say for certain is there was at least one relationship that doesn't look very straight.
Well, see, and then there is this book, and gotta remember what it was. Mm.
Many.
But anyway, it was talking about like there used to be like this little like yacht club for all the gay actors, and it was basically a Hookville. Um, and they just had a bunch of trailers.
Right. Well, I mean, you've got a few different things going on in Hollywood
Right.
during like its golden era.
Right.
That was shielding, actors from publicity,
Mm-hmm.
and was allowing them to just go do whatever they wanted to.
Right.
And like you had businesses that were doing this as a covert thing. Like there's a lot going on in Hollywood
Right.
the tinsel was only like skin deep.
Right.
But then you really have to, before you start labeling someone's sexuality, you generally have to talk to them.
Right.
Okay, but then that poses a problem because we're trying to use words in 2023, words in 2010, words in
Right.
2000 about someone who died in 85,
Right.
and there's a struggle.
Mm-hmm.
Let alone if you keep going back further and further in history, trying to like the idea that you could, well, here's an idea. If you were to, and I know you're going to smack me for this later, but if you were to do mediumship with Rock Hudson,
Mm-hmm.
like assuming that's even something that you could get a relative to want to do mediumship with him, to make the connection for this to even work at all.
Mm-hmm. Full Service is the book.
Well, right, but how likely do you think that their 2023 worded question
Right.
to someone who died in 85 at the height of the AIDS, or at the height of
Right.
AIDS, how well do you think they're going to be able to take in, understand, and respond to? And I mean by they, Rock Hudson, the words that we're using to describe sexuality in 2023, and then utilize those to communicate clearly
Right.
who they are.
See, and that's the problem I think that we get into.
Mm-hmm.
We make judgments now. We try to apply words of now to then, and it's like, is that how it really is? Is that where it's at? Is that where it balances itself out? And
Well,
I
yeah,
don't think so.
because you've got now like the Book of Gay History. That's a really fun show. Definitely go check it out. It really digs into a lot of different famous
Right.
people, and the fact, at least,
Right.
they weren't 100% the like of heterosexuality one may take from history.
Right.
That they were maybe not so much.
Right.
But then again, different era, different languages,
Mm-hmm.
different ideas, and how far did those relationships, were they even able to go?
Right.
Because there's conversations that they have on that show about Abraham Lincoln
Mm-hmm.
and his roommate. Then you have the conversations about Eleanor Roosevelt
Right.
and whether or not that whole relationship was even physical.
Right.
Like, as in, it may have been non-heterosexual fantasy in her letters going back and forth that never kind of.
Right. And then you have the other side of this. Well, you have to look at, homosexuality didn't get taboo into the late 40s.
Well, I don't think we have. And again, that gets back into labeling it. Like, I don't think we labeled it. I don't think anyone really was
Right.
paying all that much attention.
Right. And now someone has gone freaking cuckoo with the Brothers label printer on everything.
Yeah, we are going to label this gay. We're going to label it bi. We're going to label it pan. We're going to label it straight. We're going to label it. And I mean, and then it's like, how far back do you want to go?
Yeah.
And again, you're viewing it through glasses of the 21st century and what we now know
Right.
or what we now think and how we would term what we're seeing
Right.
may not have been quite so much of an issue.
Right.
I mean, because here's another instance that you can look back in history: the original YMCA policies on nude swimming.
Right.
How innocent was that?
Right.
We have lots of men and boys in a pool together, and they're all naked,
Right.
and okay, you do that in 2023, you're a fucking pedophile.
Right.
You're going to prison, dude.
Yeah.
This is a pedophile party, and your ass is going to an electric chair one way or another.
Right.
Like, we can't even conceive of the punishment for this.
But that's
you
the
back
thing.
up, and this was normal.
Yeah. And a lot of things were normal in general, comparative to now. We really did not get as critical with things until the late 40s.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Well, and then they have long-term history behind them.
Right.
Because from somewhere between Rome and the 1940s,
Mm-hmm.
we apparently didn't think about pedophilia at all. We didn't care. We were kind of cool with it.
Well,
I mean, human history
mm-hmm.
was kind of cool with it. Like, okay, well, that's what you do with your benefactor. That's a form of relationship.
Right.
And I'm sorry, I don't mean to equate the two. I'm just sitting here having a moment of like, I feel like we almost have to start there.
Right.
With the more like, go, what the item?
Right.
Before we can even go, okay, so, all right, so we like, apparently human history was cool with like having sex with kids.
Well, see,
and then
the thing with that is you have to reconsider what is considered a child.
What's considered a child, or like who and what is considered a child? What are we protecting them from? What was their social class? How much do we care about social class in regards to like what rights you had or didn't?
Right.
Then we have to go down this whole rabbit hole of like what is considered sexuality but isn't considered sexuality, even though it's sexual activity.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, we still have people struggling with men who have sex with men, and the fact that phrase exists.
Right. I mean, this idea is that you're an adult at 18. Mm-hmm. Really, it's a new age thing if we look at human history.
Well, yes.
But get this, and this is what people don't get a lot of times, is, we're getting ready to go into the Christmas season, so yeah, I'm going there. Okay. Mary was probably age 12, married to probably a 46-year-old.
I mean, possibly. And it wouldn't have been weird.
No, it would have been normal life.
That's what happens. And like, okay, cool, this is the thing. And again, this all kind of centers around like trying to prospectively look back in history and judge people in history.
Right.
And then try to do that in our context.
Right.
Versus theirs.
Right.
In which, okay, was this abnormal or normal?
Mm-hmm.
Like, was this just going on everywhere and no one really cared to comment and it was not a big deal? Right. Or is this like, holy crap, I cannot believe this is happening?
Right.
And what social value did it have at the time?
Right.
And so you kind of have to, it's not a short dive into history to go yank all of the homos out of the closet and be like, here you go, here's our historical homo fathers.
Right.
And our lesbian mothers. It's not that simple.
Right.
Because many of these people, what are you talking about?
Right.
What are we even discussing?
Right.
Like, okay, fine, this was a sexual behavior I was involved in, but
Right.
it didn't have any meaning.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't like it wasn't a statement. This,
Right. Well, example, in the 1500s,
yeah.
girls at age 12 were considered women and boys at age 14.
Mhm. And even then, that was boys
Right.
could be considered adults at that age.
Right.
But even still, it meant that, like, to realistically be considered a man, you are going to have to be able to support yourself.
Right.
So just the fact that you could, it's sort of like you can be emancipated and be considered
Right.
an adult at 16 now.
Right.
It doesn't really mean that you are
Right.
an adult. You can be. There are many people that I think are adults at 16, at least functionally.
Right.
Now, by no means does that mean go pick one up at a bar, or outside a bar, or at a playground,
Well, and
or at a
see,
mall.
that's the thing.
Like,
And that's the thing people rarely get, and is right there. You really do not, begin. If we look back in history, adults were ones that could do their job, provide for themselves, did not depend on their families.
mm-hmm. And realistically, it may be more about abuse
Right.
and abusive situations
Mm-hmm.
than it had to do with our modern context of, like, raising a child until adulthood
Right.
and having a realistic expectation that they are now an adult and can take care of themselves. Especially when you talk about this in terms of class,
Right.
because that's sometimes where the real divider line is.
Mm-hmm.
Is, like, if you're talking about a wealthy, person's child,
Right.
well, they can be a child until like 30,
Right.
and they're perfectly supposedly innocent. But then when you start looking at lower class, like socially,
Mm-hmm.
economically, so socioeconomically, lower class individuals, like, we were yanking 5-year-olds and sending them to workhouses,
Yeah.
and they were separated from their families and just lived in like little tenements.
Right.
And we didn't care
Right. And
because,
and I believe it's age 12 you could enter the world of service.
mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
So again, how much does that influence our ideas of what an adult is? Like, I think if you work 18 hours a day and you draw a salary,
Mm-hmm. You're an adult.
I mean, it sounds kind of adult to me.
Right.
But at the same time, I don't think we could even historically go back and look at a 12-year-old working 18 hours a day and drawing a salary and not just find it like an absolute travesty.
But
Now,
we can.
2023 us.
2023 us can, if you do not understand the structure of human existence at the time.
Well, but it also doesn't mean it was right.
Right. Well, but when the human existence life was 25, 20, 36 years is the best you could live. We're dirt for a reason. You realize that in modern history, we're dirt.
Yeah. Like, well, we've barely been here. Like, if the existence of the world were a clock,
No.
we've been here for a couple of minutes.
When we look at the existence, when we look at our ages, go back 400 years, we're dead.
Oh yeah. No, yeah, I see what you're saying now. Okay. Well, and so effectively, like if we've only technically in the great big giant world existence clock been here for a couple of minutes,
Right,
each generation has been here for hundredths of a second, maybe.
right,
And that's based on current life
right,
expectancies, not the generations that ticked by in like a millionth of a second
right,
because they were here and gone. Like they were lucky to live to 24.
right,
So, if we want to talk about why puberty happens when puberty happens,
right,
it has more to do with our historic evolution and the
right.
fact that we haven't. And oddly, we're going backwards on that clock
Okay.
because there have been statistics on that kids are hitting puberty earlier,
Yeah.
which is really weird.
Not really if we look at what they're getting in their food.
Okay, well, granted, if you want to talk about hormones and food, that's fair. I'm just sitting here going evolutionarily and adaptively.
Mm-hmm.
I would almost expect to see puberty start hitting. I mean, if we're talking about we've basically doubled life expectancy.
Mm-hmm.
At some point, we should have seen puberty hit at like 21,
Right.
25.
Right.
That these would legitimately be children,
Right.
like incapable of like sexual reproduction
Mm-hmm.
until a later age.
Right.
And then we hormone coded our food and actually pushed that number backwards, and it's
Right.
kind of weird. But even before we were really doing that,
Right.
it kind of held
Right.
and didn't become like, okay, boys now go through puberty at 18 instead of like 12,
Right.
like what I would have expected.
Right.
Because again, it should have been tied more closely to total longevity.
Right. But we only got total longevity of what we're currently at, probably within the last 50 years.
True. Well, but no, we've been. I mean, granted, it moved up very slowly for
Mm-hmm.
a long time.
Right.
And yes, okay, so we've had the massive life increase or life expectancy increase happen in the last 60, 70 years.
Right.
I mean, roughly since the 1950s. Like, we conquered a lot of stuff in the 30s and 40s.
Right.
And then, so by the generation of the 50s and 60s, we
Right.
should have started seeing, because some of us are a couple of generations from that.
Right.
We should have started seeing that clock slow down
Right.
and like the timer slow down and the alarm go off for puberty starting to increase
Right.
in age.
Well, that and the other cycles should increase in age if you are not supplementing. Like if you take a human body and you feed it natural foods that are not homogenized, that are not processed with hormones, that are not given antibiotics,
Mm-hmm.
I think you'll see that. I also think that's why we're seeing women give birth to children at a later age.
I do think that's a fair commentary to make,
Mm-hmm.
is that we have seen the reproductive years lengthen.
Mm-hmm.
Even though evolutionarily that also should have meant we shifted the clock.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like if you're not hitting puberty till like 18, 21, 24,
Mm-hmm.
then yeah, you would expect someone in their 50s and potentially 60s to still be reproductively viable.
Right.
Because okay, we understand this is a much longer time scale,
Right.
so like having this 10-year fertility window or 20-year fertility window doesn't make a lot of sense anymore.
Right.
We'll see that expand as well. But we've seen that happen with puberty happening earlier. So now we have like 9-year-old girls that start menstruating and then potentially have an expectancy. We may be on the verge of the generation that doesn't hit menopause.
Right.
until like 60.
Right. I mean, because Janet Jackson gave natural childbirth at age 50.
Well, and then you have to question how supported was that?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, because rich celebrity can pull some stunts.
Right.
And I'm not saying that she didn't have a natural childbirth. I'm saying how much of that was like genetically viable for
Mm-hmm.
her
Right.
versus how much of that was co-supported by like fertility treatment
Nope.
and
She was total natural.
okay, just oops, I got pregnant at 50.
Yeah.
Okay. Um,
But natural.
right. Well, and we're getting more and more stories of that happening. It's
Mm-hmm.
not the norm, but it's happening.
Yeah.
I mean, it's kind of like my own coming into a world story was that, my mother had 4 kids, had her tubes tied,
Mm-hmm.
and like, okay, thank God I'm done.
Mm-hmm.
I already have 4 kids and I'm done. Like,
Right.
done. I don't want a 5th or 6th or 7th or 18th child.
Right.
Like I'm done.
Right.
And then literally at the point in which she was like, oh, thank God, I must be going through menopause.
Mm-hmm.
Like, whoo, we're done. We're fit. Mother Nature's out.
Right.
I stopped Mother Nature dead in its tracks. And now Mother Nature has decided I'm done.
Right.
She was pregnant.
Right. And, possibly, in today's time would have been facing battery charges.
Pardon?
From slapping the
Oh, yeah,
doctor.
fair point. Well, yeah. I was not a product of great prenatal care.
Right.
It's okay. It was, it was a release of an apartment. Like, it was fine. It was fine.
Mm-hmm.
My younger sister did some cleaning while she was there. I'm sure she did.
Mm-hmm.
But she's a little OCD. I'm sure she cleaned it all up. It was great.
Right.
It was a little outdated, but it was cool.
Right.
I'm trying to be funny here.
Yes.
But anyway, no, I mean, and that's a serious consideration as well. And it was one that my mother had and was scared to death about.
Right.
Was because she was multiple months pregnant
Mm-hmm.
before she knew.
Yeah.
And so there were concerns because it was right there on the cusp of, like, well, you're not supposed to drink during pregnancy. You're not supposed to smoke during pregnancy. You have to take prenatal vitamins. And if you don't do these things,
Right.
this is how you get like children with birth defects.
Right.
This is how you get children that have, horrible conditions. And, it's all your fault for being a bad gestational mother.
Right.
And so she was horrified
Right.
and was like, I mean, the best words she ever heard were like 10 fingers, 10 toes.
Mm-hmm.
Before, and even then, like, she spent the next 2 years of my life scared as hell.
Right.
Just for me to have infantile seizures, and then totally blamed herself.
Right. And see, none of that
Her fault, everything she did wrong.
Yeah, but see, that's a large swift of advice changes.
Yeah. When you have your first kid in the 50s accidentally, sorry, shouldn't say that out loud, but I mean, is it really even like that big of a thing anymore?
No.
I mean, because like pretty much.
Let's go from 1940s on.
Yeah.
Okay, 1940s.
Yeah, a lot of surprise pregnancies.
They didn't
a lot of
care
people
that
not
you
moving to get pregnant.
They didn't care if you smoked. They recommended women drinking a glass of wine each night to make pregnancy easier.
Mm-hmm.
It's actually, still in common practice that if you want that baby born, drink a glass of wine and eat some, what is it? It's not salami. It's the very thin Italian bacon. I just pissed off all our true Italian listeners.
Prosciutto?
There you go.
Okay.
And you'll go into labor. So there was a very large shift there from the 1940s and 50s where, yeah, drink some water, you drink, don't be an alcoholic, but if you drink, you drink, no big deal. To
Well, and saying that in the midst of like the height of alcoholism.
right,
Like, I have a few drinks every once in a while meant more like I'm a raging alcoholic in the 50s.
right,
Like, oh, I just have a few drinks.
right. I mean, it was
Is
common.
more like I'm.
There are marriage advice books out there from the 50s that remind women that when their man comes home from work, to have his drink ready.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and then we're also again historically looking at the era of the pill for everything.
Right.
Like we were still heavily medicating women
Mm-hmm.
to deal with the life and times they were living. Like we hit the apex height of that in the 60s and 70s.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And like, like, oh, the Ritalin addicted soccer mom of the 80s had nothing
Right.
on like moms of the 60s and 70s.
Right.
Like the crap they were on.
Right.
And still functional.
Yeah.
And again, a lot of those meds later came to have pregnancy warnings that you do not
Right.
give that to a pregnant woman. You will do horrible things to her body
Right.
and to the unborn child.
Right.
So again, I mean, like a lot of things changed.
Mm-hmm.
Not that even any of those were. I mean, if you've had your tubes tied and you're approaching what for earlier generations would have been the age of menopause.
Mm-hmm.
I'm pretty sure, like, because mom slapped a doctor when she found out she was pregnant.
Right.
Because it's like, you've lost your effing mind. There's no way I'm pregnant. Like, this can't happen.
Right.
Like, what, it's not like mom was walking around thinking, oh, I could get pregnant at some point. I should probably make good choices.
Yeah.
Or better choices or pregnancy
Right.
positive choices because, what if I became pregnant? What if I got
Right.
knocked up next week? How would I feel if like that one drink? Oh yeah, and caffeine, 3 cans of Mountain Dew. Yeah.
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 Yeah. Mommy's Little Helpers. Yes, we need I would love to have a bottle of Mommy's Little Helper.
Uh-huh. Yeah. The amphetamine era. Because we did, like, and we're coming off the like the the age in which like you could get morphine over the counter, and
Right.
Coca-Cola had cocaine in it, and like everyone's on amphetamines.
Right.
Like we use them for diet and weight loss.
We still use them for diet and weight loss.
Yes. So all of this taken together, it was a wild shift between the 50s and the 80s.
Right.
And then, yeah, some things have changed since the 80s. I will totally grant that.
Right.
But it was not the major rocket shift.
Right.
Because we had a massive shift between the 50s and the 80s, between the 80s and I'd say today.
Yeah.
We've had incremental things.
Right.
And we've gone on to refine some things, but oh my God.
Yeah.
Like it was not the like complete shakedown between becoming a mother in the 50s and becoming a mother in the 80s and what you were supposed to now know.
Exactly. Castor oil and turpentine, yes.
Just speed that baby right out of there.
Yes.
And shine your floors that it shoots out
beforehand.
Okay. We're so far off of Rock Hudson.
All right, well, let's go. Something else is off the rocker is the iPhone 15. Apparently, if you really want to heat your home, all you need is an iPhone 15.
Chestnuts roasting over the iPhone. That'll be our winter theme. So yeah, the iPhone 15 Pro overheating resolved. Thermal photos before and after iOS 1703. So, yes, this is from ZDNet. They conducted thermal imaging tests on iPhone 15 Pro after Apple's iOS 1703 update and has concluded the overheating issue with fast charging appears to be resolved. So Apple rolled out its iOS 1703 update on Wednesday with a release note that it addresses an issue that may cause iPhone to run warmer than expected. ZDNet has tested this update and using a thermal camera has concluded that it has indeed resulted in the iPhone 15 Pro and Pro Max running cooler when fast charging. As widely reported since the arrival of iPhone 15 Pro on September 22nd, the iPhone 15 Pro and 15 Pro Max could get very warm when fast charging or when using third-party apps such as Instagram, Uber, or Asphalt 9 that appeared to exacerbate a flaw in the iOS 17 software. Apple insisted that the overheating issue was related to a software bug and was not related to the new hardware or design in the iPhone 15 Pro models, which introduced a new titanium frame with an aluminum substructure to replace the stainless steel frame from the past several Pro models. So, yes, in my testing with the iPhone 15 Pro and Pro Max, I experienced two overheating issues. The first and most major one was the iPhone 15 Pro Max getting very hot to the touch when fast charging it with Apple's USB-C cable connected to a 35-watt charging brick. I was able to replicate this experience in another location using the same cable and charger. I used a thermal camera to measure the heat and found that the iPhone 15 Pro Max got as hot as 107.1 degrees Fahrenheit.
Right.
So basically, you could almost cook an egg. This was much hotter than other iPhone and Android phones, which typically max out at 85 to 95 degrees when fast charging in my test. The hottest any other phone got when testing in the same conditions was the Samsung Galaxy Fold 5, which got up to 98.7 degrees Fahrenheit.
Mm-hmm.
The other overheating issue that, and this is the author when I'm saying that I noticed in my iPhone 15 Pro review appeared when jumping between the third-party camera app Halide, an Apple stock camera app, while I was shooting a lot of photos outside on an 82-degree day. When I would swap back to the Apple camera app, say that 5 times fast, it would very briefly display a message saying iPhone needs to cool down for 1 to 2 seconds before I could start using it again. Halide has also issued an update to its app that appears to have resolved that issue. So yeah, apparently downloading that update, which there were some questions before Apple released that update when they were talking about releasing it.
Right.
There were concerns that they were just going to underperform the phone,
Right.
and just drop its processor speed to offset the heating problem.
Right.
But that is not what they've done. It was a software, is what they're claiming, and what it appears to be was a glitch.
Well, and what they're actually saying is it isn't us, it's everyone else.
Fundamentally, but it's basically you screwed up, and everyone else was unfortunately doing things that created issues.
Right.
So they have not reduced performance in order to better control the heat of the iPhone 15 Pro models. The author of this article, I haven't noticed any differences in the speed or responsiveness of either phone. Apple Insider also ran benchmarks on the iPhone 15 Pro and Pro Max after updating to 1703 and detected little or no variance with the pre-update benchmarks in both phones.
Right.
So when they say little to no, it means honestly, if we ran this benchmark 15 times, we're going to get some fluctuation in variance,
right?
Regardless. And that's basically what we're seeing is
right.
No more than like a margin of error fluctuation. So there should be no difference.
So maybe you won't get a light burn from your iPhone.
Well, or be able to cook breakfast on the train.
Yeah.
Just play this game or charge it.
Right.
Cook breakfast at your desk. Keep your coffee warm. I mean, kind of an expensive coffee warmer, but
yeah, because they were only 20 degrees from a burn. to
Yes.
the skin.
Yes. Well, we've seen a lot of phones overheat in the past, and it usually
Hmm.
has to do with poor cooling coupled with an overheating processor.
Right.
And or an overheating battery. So yeah, this looks like there was just a minor issue that they were able to fix.
Yeah, the human pain threshold is around 106 to 107 degrees.
Hmm.
And
Like we find that uncomfortably warm.
yeah, so yeah, the people's iPhones at 107 degrees because they were on Instagram really cuts down their screen time real quick because they'll drop the damn thing.
Well, no, I don't think that's quite where they're at. I think what they're talking about is the literal moment where your body starts to conclude that this thing is hot
Right,
and that you ought to not touch it.
right,
Not that you're in immediate burn danger or you're
right,
going to experience a burn,
right,
but that this is the minimum temperature that we start to register that something is not
right,
like we need to put it down or not touch it.
right,
We go a few more degrees before we stain bodily injury, and like this is the early warning that you need to put it down now.
right,
It's safer to put it down now.
right. Alrighty, so let's see if you're the asshole.
Alrighty, so this one should be fun. Am I the asshole for refusing to pretend to be religious to comfort my dad whilst he is in the hospital? So I, 23 female, was raised in a very, very religious household. My parents are are Sunni Muslims, and from when I was 5 years old, I had to wear the hijab and pretty much had religious dogma shoved down my throat. When I was 16, I tried to take off my hijab, and my parents freaked out. My mom even cut off my hair in an attempt to force me to wear the hijab. Eventually, once I was 18, I managed to escape via university and had very limited contact with them since. Luckily, I'm in Canada, so there wasn't much they could do to me once I turned 18. My younger brother, 15 male, reached out recently to say that my dad is quite sick in the hospital and keeps asking for me. And I asked if I could come and see him and wear the hijab just to give him peace in case he does not recover. A part of me wants to see them again, but I have a lot of trauma regarding my hair. It took years to grow it after my mom cut it off, and being forced to stay home with no friends growing up made me quite stunted in university, which, not gonna lie, makes me very resentful. My brother is definitely understanding and isn't religious himself. Apparently, my mom and dad chilled out once I went low contact, but he feels bad for my dad and mom, so he's pretty much begging me to just do this once for them and then cut them off for good. I'm okay to see my dad in the hospital. So the 15 brothers asking if
Mm-hmm.
could come see ostensibly not only her father, but come see the family and specifically him to give peace in this time.
Right,
Okay, got it now. Yeah, okay, so I'm okay to see my dad in the hospital, maybe not my mom. She was the disciplinarian growing up. But putting the hijab back on is a no go. I wasted 18 years of my life wearing this, and I can't stomach another second. My boyfriend also understands and has my back, but I can't help but feel a bit guilty. So Reddit, am I the asshole, or should I stay firm and maybe even go full no contact if things escalate? Your question isn't quite your question, because I think you're focusing on your father in the hospital and not your brother, that I think is sincerely asking out for the support of his sister during this. But I fundamentally have to say you're not the asshole.
no.
I mean, I think it's a shitty situation, period.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I don't think you're the asshole for not wanting to see your father, especially if it means putting back on a religious garment that you were forced to wear as part of a religion that you wanted nothing to do with, that was being forced upon you.
Right.
Though I still feel bad for your brother, because I think that's the real, like, I don't want to say that OP is not a victim of this. They are.
Yeah.
But I think that the 15-year-old younger brother is caught in the middle of all this and just wants his big sister.
Right.
And so I feel like in this specific instance, the 15-year-old is the real victim here. Of not, like, as in, like, he's the one caught in the crossfire of this.
Right.
Who is just trying to like have a sister there and keep peace in the family long enough to get through the very likely death of their father.
Right.
And I think OP might have missed that.
Yeah, especially since she has an older brother that hates her guts, and this is the younger brother asking for her to come visit, only if she fits into the family form. And I'm not a big proponent of that. Like, I throw a bitch fit.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it sounds very much like a 15-year-old's request is
Right.
like, I want this,
Mm-hmm.
but this is the situation surrounding it. Could you just do this?
Right.
Which doesn't exactly sound like a big ask until it's like, okay, let's unpack what you just asked me to do.
Right.
It's yeah.
And
Is
I'm not going to debate the hijab. It has its place within its religious forms. Mainly took up in the late 70s more so than today, and to what we see of it today. But
yeah, I gotta go with go see him, but don't wear it, and just
yeah,
be there for your brother. And
right,
I think maybe try to address your brother specifically, independent of like your parents,
right,
because I think that's the real issue.
right,
Is like I don't want to say your brother doesn't care if you go see your father or not.
right,
I think there's part of him that does, but I think the reason for the request is his own discomfort in the
right,
situation, and he's trying to figure out a way to have you there
right.
where no one's mad.
Well, that and I think that you need that if you do go, you do not go alone, or they'll try to kidnap you again for
Maybe, but
no,
I think. Well, I mean, it depends.
yeah,
Because I like we don't get clear indicators here. Like, are we talking about you're going to a different country? Like, or we're talking about you're in Canada, your parents are in Canada. This is why you're able to like go off to college and like
clear
abandon.
across the country.
Okay,
Literally, they went from like one side of Canada to the other side of Canada to go to college so they could have a life. But
okay,
they pulled her out of school at grade 11. She had to do her final 2 years in an Islamic school. Her hair was chopped off, and the mother insulted her over it. They were also subjected to a exorcism.
yeah.
Yeah,
I think this is when you focus on your brother, not your younger brother.
right,
The 15-year-old, and kind of gloss over your parents
right,
and continue your low to no contact
right,
with the parents.
right,
But like try to make sure your younger brother is taken
right,
care of through this, because I think that's the bigger situation.
right,
And again, that may be an unfortunate reality of like this situation, is that you're not going to be able to support your younger brother.
right.
And that's also really sad, but unfortunately sometimes that can be a safety issue.
Right.
Like it all depends upon what are you walking back into. So
Right.
I guess I should say that.
Yeah.
Because I'm sitting here going, well, if you're going like halfway across the world from Canada to go home for this situation, you're potentially giving up a lot of rights and a
Right.
lot of ability to self. But even like we experience this sometimes in the U.S. in religious communities,
Right.
that like it can be very dangerous just going into the wrong neighborhood, because that's a community
Yeah.
that is very deeply steeped in its own, religious laws
Right.
and ideas and principles. And like, good luck finding someone to be your, knight in shining armor here, because there's an entire community that's like, no, you're the one that screwed up.
Yeah.
Like, we don't care about the rest of this world. You're in our backyard.
Right.
So if that's the kind of community you would potentially be going home to,
Right.
that's a problem.
Right.
No, you unfortunately, as part of this situation, cannot support your younger brother no matter how much you want to,
Right.
because the safety risk is too high.
Right.
Like, it's incredibly too high.
Right.
If however you don't feel there is a direct safety threat
Right.
with having contact with your brother,
Mm-hmm.
independent of the hospital and visiting your father,
Right.
then you may want to, try to go into that city, that larger, not Sunni Muslim community, to meet up with your brother.
Right.
Like, but if we're talking backwoods, middle of nowhere,
Right.
like if Sunni community is all you got,
Right.
you're gonna unfortunately not even be able to be
Right.
there for your brother.
Exactly. And there's a lot of religious trauma there that you definitely need to get some therapy on and work through it. All right. So the poll is up. You get to vote. Is she the asshole for going, nope, sorry, will not put back on the religious garb of a religion I no longer practice, or you?
Fair enough. Fair enough. All right. So let me get this relationship article up, because I hadn't had a moment to hit that one. All right. Polyfibromyalgia and what to do. Looking for advice perspective. My wonderful nesting partner, Maple, 42 male, and I, 43 female, have been together 2.5 years. Poly relationship from the beginning, though neither of us has had other partners yet. I have fibromyalgia, diagnosed over a decade ago, and the last 4 or so years have been excessively hard with flare ups and a steady decline in my health. It makes dating, communicating, getting to know new people very, very hard to virtually impossible for me. I don't have the energy to deal with the weeding out, wading through profiles online. I don't have the stamina to exchange texts that, in my experience so far, either go off the rails, so sick of the down to fuck types, or type text, and dick pics or ghost. I'm a homebody because I rarely feel better than eh. So meeting folks in the wild is extremely unlikely. Maple has had a significant online social media dating site presence from the beginning and is always texting folks. He's gone out on some dates, but they didn't blossom further. I find myself happy Maple is doing his thing and successfully talking with folks, but I keep catching myself feeling really, really down about it too. I keep trying to dig into why, and I don't have anything except feeling, for lack of a better term, left out. Not by anyone's doing, but because I feel like I don't have the physical ability to pursue other relationships myself. He is and can and able where I want to but can't situation. Maple and I have talked about how I feel, but neither of us has figured out how to improve the thing. The current feeling is one of sadness, like I'm missing out on my part of the poly relationship structure, and jealous rears when Maple mentions his plans to go on a date. The jealousy is over my seeming inability to be an active poly person and have what Maple has or has the potential to have. I get that it's not, uh, tit for tat, tick for tack, but I feel like Maple hasn't had to experience the other side of poly, where I'm out on a date while he has to sit with that feeling and all that comes with it, like I have. Sometimes I feel like they have all the fun while I do the work. Not that he isn't doing the work already, but that it's different when you're actively experiencing the feelings because you're in it. Right now, he's only had to deal with the hypotheticals of me dating. I know none of this is anyone's fault and that my disability isn't the problem. I just don't know how to address this. Hmm.
You know, I don't know. What's your take for the moment?
I, this kind of digs into the realities
Mm-hmm.
of relationships when you have a major disparity in health condition.
Right.
When you have one, assumably, fully able, capable, totally rocking it with their 2 legs, 2 arms, 10 fingers, 10 toes, perfect health, or seemingly so, and one person who has one or more major medical conditions. It's not fair. That's what it is. It's not fair. It
Right.
sucks. I don't think there's anyone that can sit there and tell you this is fair.
Right.
It's not fair. It sucks. Um, and I can understand having some like able body hatred.
Right.
Like, this is easy for you. You have the ability to do this.
Right.
I'm sitting over here with one arm tied behind my back and a
Mm-hmm.
busted knee,
Right.
and I have the same opportunities as you.
Mm-hmm.
But do I really? It's like, well, just climb this flight of stairs with your busted knee and your one arm tied behind your back.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, I can't do that. Or I can do that, but like, this isn't a good idea.
Right.
This is how I die. Um,
Right.
it's not fair and it sucks. And I don't think anyone can ever sit there and tell you that it is fair and that it's not gonna suck.
Right. And
As
but
for
here's the other things.
yeah,
You know, because I understand where they're coming from about, well, I do all the work and everyone else gets to have fun. We have those. You have those moments. You also have those moments in time when it's like, okay, so that means you have to renegotiate what you need to do and how you need to do it. Texting I do isn't working. Fine, then you don't text.
Mhm. Well, and it sounds like there's also opportunities, but they're
Mhm.
unappealing opportunities.
Right.
Like they're not looking for poly just to get laid by anyone that
Right.
comes along.
Right.
Versus, and I feel like Polly and Fam kind of nailed this one, and it does come up a lot more than people think in polyamorous relationships.
Mhm.
Is because it's really easy to sit there and go, "Oh my god, my partner is so fucking popular on this site."
Right.
And like we've had that. Like
We have
I'm
that all
sitting
the
here
time.
like, here's the talent, and I'm chopped liver because we go into a different area. His profiles can get hit up like there is no tomorrow. It sounds like someone hit a jackpot in a casino. I'm sitting over here like I might get one that's not a bot.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, what am I, chopped liver? Do I need to hang a sign that says too ugly to live from the hump on my back? And if so, whether I use the pearls or the chain, that's a lovely Golden Girls reference there.
Pearls.
But pearls, always pearls. But no, I like, and I'm not trying to trivialize. I'm not. I'm really not.
Right.
But sometimes it's more perspective.
Right.
And I'm not saying that entirely applies here. I think there's a lot of legitimate. There's a difference.
Well,
Um, but
there's
there's
some major
also,
differences. And what's
I think,
interesting is this is kind of our reverse because I tend to date more, but I'm the one with RA.
right, right. Well, and that's true too. But at the same time, well, what I was gonna say is like I think there's a perspective, like there's a health foundation
Mm-hmm.
for a disparity, but
Right.
then I think there's sometimes also a filter
Right.
of perspective
Right.
that can exacerbate it. Like sometimes the person always going out on dates isn't having a good time.
Mm-hmm.
Just like when we have the situation where his, like, you name the app, starts sounding like someone hit the lotto or hit the winning numbers at a casino.
Right.
You should see these profiles. Like, he is not getting quality, he's just getting quantity.
Quantity.
Like, there's no quality. Like, maybe he gets one quality every once in a while.
Yeah.
And more importantly, he's not really looking for quantity. He is looking for quality, and he's looking for more than just, as you're pointing out, OP. Um, Someone who is not just, age, sex, location.
Right.
Do you have a place
Right.
available now?
Right.
And is actually looking to get to know someone and this be more than,
Mm-hmm.
like, what's your name again? Like, I have your bodily fluids inside me. What's your name again?
Yeah, I need to put you in the registry. Yeah, that's not how I date. And that's very annoying. One of our good friends has this continual humor about some men and dating.
Yes. Yes.
And I personally find it hilarious. Because it's like, dude, you got tame comparatively.
Oh,
Which, by the way, gay man, can we do some more investing in like conversation and some other things before you start with the damn photos? Because some of you guys, I'm telling you, it's like, ooh, have your best friend look at them first. Um,
yeah, yeah. Maybe get your best friend to help take.
yeah,
You know what I mean? Maybe don't send that one first.
yeah.
Maybe
But no,
let that one
my
be a
tips
separate
for
villain.
it is find instead of investing in these long diatribes, and they are diatribes.
I'm sorry, I'm laughing at Brenda.
Okay.
She said, "You're not chopped liver, you're high class pate, which is chopped liver." Just because you chop it finer doesn't make it anything else.
Well, you know, but again, we date differently. Um, in general, and people don't get that a lot of times, and people don't look at that is we date differently. We have from since the beginning. I have my list, an application. You have your check, you know, box now.
It fits neatly on a notepad.
Yes, mine is more like, give me your Nick ID so I can go ahead and just check the background and see if I'm even interested. Oh yeah, you failed a second grade spelling bee. Not interested. Uh,
Yeah, yeah, like the terms and conditions
a lot of
are high.
right.
But that said,
Yeah,
sometimes so it can sometimes chalk up to a perspective
right.
difference. That, like, potentially you have more potential to go out on unsuccessful dates that are
Yeah,
just, why am I here?
yes.
This was annoying.
Well, I also
Um,
have them where I cut them quickly over. Like, I don't waste my energy. And I think that that's the thing OP is missing here is you need to question if they're worth that tenth of a spoon. And if not,
Yeah,
move on
quickly.
quickly.
Like, stop being nice to jerks. Like, and investing that effort into people who are, as you say, DTF, and here's a dick pic.
Right.
And just like close, laugh, and move on.
Right.
As much as you
You missed
can
the
to
step there.
actually,
Comment and move on.
well, that's effort. That's effort.
Save it to your notepad. What is that? A jerkin?
There you go. There you go. Take some time to have some humor with it. Create some funny comebacks. When you're having a 5-spoon day,
Right.
create some comebacks. Save them in a notepad. Copy and paste and
Yeah.
send, and then block.
Yeah.
Which, okay, that's fair. That's fair.
If you need tips, see me and I'll hook you up with some really nice ones that should prevent this. Like, I don't get this. I get tons of dick pics all the time, and I have commentary for all of them, all the way to, what is that? It looks like, oh yeah, you forgot something. If they can't invest in useful conversation within the first 3 sentences, then move on.
Yeah. Well, and truthfully, work smarter, not harder.
Right.
Like, figure out your process, what you're actually looking for.
Mm-hmm.
And then apply that, and still know that technically Maple is still over here, working harder, not smarter.
Right. And Maple is
And
probably
maybe,
doing like me and having to go through these useless pieces, that are that didn't read the profile.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Well, and then you find that out in the middle of like whatever the situation is. If you're going out on a date, you're meeting for coffee, like whatever you're doing, you find out that like this isn't as great as it could have been.
Right.
Or was made out to be, or like whatever.
Yeah.
And honestly, if you don't have like anything limiting, it's okay to go on a bunch of bad dates.
Right.
Or bad hookups, or because we're not slut shaming. If you want to just go for a hookup and not know someone's name, I don't have a problem with that. Go forth, have fun.
Right.
But even within that, it all sounds great until you find out that like the less conversation you have, the more opportunities you have to like get to someone's house and find out this is not the situation for you, man. Or to plan an encounter and find out, oh, I want no part of this.
Yes.
That you lied to me. Those are not your pictures. That is nothing like what you claimed in your profile.
Yep.
And you're not interested in any of the things.
Right.
That I thought you were.
Right.
And so now we've kind of entered, it rubs the lotion into its skin territory, and you have to quickly like use more energy to get out of that. And recognize that may be what ends up happening with Maple. That it's not all sunshine and lollipops. And that it may be even more not sunshine and lollipops than you can imagine.
Right. And the other recommendation is, if you're looking for poly, go to where poly is. And that means going to
communities.
Well, not only work the communities, but go to, get on Field, get on Fit Life, and work those communities. Don't be over here on OkCupid.
Yeah.
Or, the ones that you're going to have to put up with, plenty of fish. That ain't for you. That you don't belong there.
Right. And that's what I was meaning is work the places that like this is where your people are.
Right.
Like, you don't have to explain poly to them. You don't have to deal with assholes who don't want to be in poly and think you're, a whore. You don't have to deal with like unpacking it for them. It's like, hi, I'm in a poly relationship. And they're like, cool, me too. What you interested in? And then you can actually have a higher likelihood
Right. And the
of
other
having
part, and this is
conversation.
probably one that not a lot of people are going to talk about, no one's commented here, is finding somebody else that is already dealing with your situation. And what I mean by that is fibro date fibro.
Mm, I would modify that a little.
Okay.
Well, because sometimes, so, and I'm trying to put this delicately, and I'm going to stop trying to put it delicately. Some conditions shouldn't date themselves.
Okay.
Well, the reason I say that is because you have an overlapping problem.
Right.
And if your overlapping problem is that you don't have energy for conversation, you don't have energy to go on dates, you're doubling your problem. Is
Well,
because now you have two people.
right.
Now, I would, however, suggest dating and looking for people who have parents with fibro, who
Mm-hmm.
already have a partner with fibro,
Mm-hmm.
who you don't have to unpack this for them. You don't have to explain spoons. You don't have to explain
Right.
that they get it.
Yeah.
And they're kind of like Maple, who already knows the deal. They've like, I know fibro. I know that you're not being a flake, that you legitimately can't do this today. And
Right.
that's okay.
Right.
Do you want me to come by with cookies? Do you want to watch a movie?
No, don't do sugar.
Well, you know what I mean.
I get that, but no, come by with
Like,
like a protein shake.
okay, fine. Do you want me to come by with a protein shake and we'll watch a movie?
Right.
Instead of going out and having a nice dinner and going for a walk on the beach.
Right.
Like, adjust the energy level of the date to match you.
Right.
And it not be a problem, because hey, I get it.
Yeah.
Like, been there, done that, doing that.
Exactly. So, the dude coming pre-trained would be a plus for you.
Yes.
Being a little bit more open to dating at home after like the first date. Good possibility there. You know, and that helps a lot when you don't have to figure out, okay, what am I wearing? Where are we going? How am I getting there? Am I getting in a car today? Do I feel like driving? Do I need them to pick me up?
Mm-hmm.
Do I even want to do that? How's this going to work? And then the other thing is being upfront, point
Mm-hmm.
blank, lay it out there. First date, this is your second conversation. Your first conversation in a poly dating situation is normally about your partner. And boundaries, rules, or consortiums, or who are they and what they do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And if you don't believe me, you can go contact them.
Yeah.
And and then the second conversation, if there's anything your potential partners need to know.
Yeah.
Like, what's, like, and we all have those. It's not just I can understand it can be really hard when you have a major medical condition to feel like you're the only one having to disclose that, like, you have fibro and this is what that means.
Right.
You're not quite as like alone as you think you are.
Right.
I've known a fair number of people that I wish they had had a second conversation
Mm-hmm.
where they outlined a little bit more of who they were, because while it's not a major medical condition,
Mm-hmm.
it definitely reshades the relationship potential.
Right.
Like, it's a major life situation.
Yeah.
And it's like, do I want to jump into that? Like, if you have a serial killer ex, you need to bring that up.
You were told that the first date.
I know. And I was fine.
Right.
It's like, oh, okay, cool. That's the price of admission here. Got it. Because I already knew of Dan Savage and that phrasing. And okay, this is the price of admission. Got it.
Yep.
And then it's like, okay, what else do I need to know?
Yeah.
Like, we're getting some expensive popcorn here. Got it.
Yeah. Gourmet,
Anything
honey.
else?
Gourmet.
Like, okay, we got the gourmet popcorn. Do you need Raisinets? Do you need soda? Do you what all am I in for here?
Dinner and a
Like,
show normally.
going to a movie. Like, what else?
Yeah.
And just like to kind of let that be known beforehand.
Right.
But there are people out there
Mm-hmm.
who have major life situations, not major medical situations,
Mm-hmm.
but major life situations that are just kind of dating around and not telling people these things.
Right.
And I don't want to say your major medical condition is like no big deal by comparison,
Mm-hmm.
but the fact that you know and acknowledge that this is going to be a part of the process
Mm-hmm.
is like a massive victory
Right.
over some of the people out here with major life situations that are just like, oh, I'm gonna wait till like we're in a 6-month relationship before I drop that little bombshell.
Yeah.
That like, surprise, I have felonies.
Yeah.
No, that's pertinent information I needed to know a little bit sooner.
Right.
Because that can color a lot of situations. It doesn't mean you necessarily discriminate against people who, for instance, have felonies, but that is a major, or can be a very major life situation. Like, are we talking like active warrants? Like, is staying over at my house considered harboring a fugitive?
Right.
That's a lot different than I've gone to prison, I did my time, I learned my lesson. You can talk to my, probation officer, or my parole officer. I have like, I was a fucked up kid. I made mistakes. I did my time.
Right.
I got my shit together.
Right.
Versus like, I got out yesterday.
Yeah.
Those are vastly different situations.
Yeah.
And a lot of people get caught up in those.
Well,
And
a lot of people get invested in those, and it's like, oh, back it down.
welcome to NRE. You will watch over and over and over again. People go off that cliff.
Right.
Like, because you got emotionally invested before you had the factual information.
Right.
And there's no fact you're going to throw at people who are heavily emotionally invested in NRE.
Right.
Like, it's a shock and a problem, but like, well, it'll be okay.
Yeah.
Is what NRE says.
Yeah. And that's why I, have your rules of engagement. This is what I will accept. This is what I will not accept. I will not deal with this before you start getting into the dating field, any situation of the dating field.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So again, work smarter,
not
harder.
Right.
Like, you need to, and that goes for all areas of your life. And I know if you have fibro that you have definitely, or if you haven't yet, you definitely need to look at ways to simplify down.
Right.
And not get caught up in trying to keep up with the Joneses and keep up with the neighbors and do all the things.
Right.
Because even the part where you have to invest the emotional and mental effort at feeling bad, that's one more spoon you lost.
Right.
Like, even just that wince of like, I wish I could do that. No. Some of that requires some heavy duty, like, you and I'm not saying you're crazy, but it takes some heavy duty therapy to sometimes punch it through to people.
Mm-hmm.
This isn't the deck of cards you were dealt from.
Right.
You have different cards. It's a totally different deck.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of commonalities.
Yeah.
But you need to figure out how to play with 5 cards, not 10.
Well, that, and the other thing is, don't compare your dating life with your partner's.
Uh-huh.
Realize that probably Maple dates differently than you do.
Mm-hmm. And can invest so much more energy uselessly.
Right.
To no fruition whatsoever, and that's okay.
Right. And he's fine dating.
He's out growing fucking daisies. You're over here trying to grow an orchid.
Exactly. And it only gets more complicated. Only gets more complicated by the more heads you put at the front table or lines you draw on the parallel chart. It only gets more complicated, and then it gets more effortless once it gets to a certain point.
Oh no, Brenda, I'm totally down with a date to the shooting range.
Yeah, dates to the shooting range is actually quite fun.
I mean, always increases my mood. I mean, if you can find a shooting range that is also a chapter of the Pink Pistols, I'm down for it. Like, if I gotta go listen to like Fox News and Trump talk, no.
Yeah.
Like, the shooting range isn't the problem. Sometimes it's the people.
Well, what has been your funnest non-me date?
My funnest non-you date?
Yes.
It's got to be the bowling alley. That like literally that was a funny date. It was a comedy of errors.
Right.
And humor, good humor. Like, it could have blown open my face so bad.
Mm-hmm.
But we were talking about before the date that neither of us had gone bowling in so long that we weren't sure if we still knew how.
Mm-hmm.
And so a joke was made about, did we need to use the bumpers or not? Oh, with the fella, yeah, no, don't go to the shooting range. Never mind, got it, Brenda. But there was a joke made about, they would probably need the bumpers just to get the ball down the lane.
Mm-hmm.
So when we went in,
Mm-hmm.
I asked for the bumpers. And like there was an initial moment of like, I cannot believe you just did that.
Uh-huh.
The guy working at the counter fucking lost his shit. Because it was the funniest damn thing he had heard all week.
Right.
And was like, are you serious? Do you want the bumpers? Like, we were about to make this game. And my date's like, no. So anyway, adding, I don't know, insult to injury, comedy to errors to comedy, I don't know which. We got placed on a lane next to a child's birthday party with a mom who had it.
Uh-huh.
Like husband has abandoned the party. The parents of all these kids dropped their kids off and ran.
Mm-hmm.
He is alone with a group of like 7 and 8-year-old boys for this birthday party. They have abandoned bowling. They have now taken over the arcade.
Uh-huh.
And then we get seated next to her, and I think she quickly did the math, and she just looked over and goes, look, I have a kid's birthday party. Y'all have fun. I don't even care if you drink, but could you just not get trashed in front of the kids?
Right.
And we're like, we can do that. And we had a lovely conversation with this lady. I really think it probably like pulled her out of like driving a van into a lake, because that was about where she was at with this day.
Right.
Because this was like a 4-hour birthday party. She had not seen parents or her husband in like 3 hours.
Yeah.
And still had full control of this group of 7 to 8-year-old boys.
Mm-hmm.
Well, technically, she had given up all hope at this point. But we had a lovely conversation. We even got her to laugh a few times. And we bowled horribly, 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 horribly. Like the score was ridiculously, stupidly low. Like her 7 and 8-year-old was doing better before they abandoned mid-frame. Like it was bad. But it was a great date. We laughed our asses off.
Mm-hmm.
We really, truly did. There was every potential this could have ended at the counter before we got shoes.
Right.
I took the risk. I would have had told the joke because I couldn't resist it. And I'm like, you know what? If you're on a date with me,
yeah,
you better have a good sense of humor, because if you don't, this date doesn't need to go any further.
Right.
Because I'm just going to harm you.
Yeah, we're still paying therapy bills. But anyhow.
Hey, you survived hiking.
I did survive hiking. That's one of my Mauder dates.
Well, hey. You loved it.
I do. Like that, like I'm an activity dater.
Mm-hmm. Like you like physical activity on your dates.
Yes.
And I think, that they can sometimes get confused with like going to a movie, which is not physical activity for you.
I hate
Yes. I will say I've had luck over the years. Like I can't, like, do not put me in charge of hotel accommodations. I will take you to the no-tell motel every single time. Not because I intend to, but because that's my luck.
Right.
But when it comes to picking a date, I tend to have good luck.
Most of the time.
Hey.
Most of the time.
I'll be winners. Well, first dates, though.
First
dates. I did really good for a first date.
You do great for first dates.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm not saying every date's a winner. I'm just saying that for my first dates, I've typically come out a winner.
Right.
Like, it's a great first date. It's like whatever someone needed.
Right.
Like, that's my first date. That's what I want.
Right.
Because I don't know, you can just kind of tell with some people that, like, I don't think this is going to be, like, we have options. What should we do?
Right.
And it's like, typically I throw things out there and I get a warm reception on the first option I hand out.
Right.
And it's, yeah.
Yeah. First date, trip to the optometrist and hiking.
Hey, you were down. You thought it was awesome.
I thought it was fun. I had a good time. So one of my worst days. Okay.
I have evidence.
I know you have evidence.
I have evidence.
Yeah.
Does this look like someone having a bad time on a first date in the middle of nowhere?
Yeah. I had fun. It was a great date. Worst date ever. Taking me to a movie.
Oh, yeah.
To an action movie. I am not let's go watch people beat their shit together. Not my deal.
Oh, she done gone and started it now.
Uh-oh. Well, she done gone and started now.
Worst date you two have had with each other.
Oh. I don't mind. Mine is clear as day.
Oh, the worst date we've had with each other. It's going to depend upon if you call it a date or not.
Okay.
Because technically he enjoyed it, but there was a large swath of it he did not enjoy. I'm going to go with the bear napping.
No, that was pretty good.
Okay. Because I basically kidnapped him for a weekend.
Yeah.
See, and I was just sitting here like, you overall like the experience, except there was a swath there that you were like, no.
Yeah.
I'm not cool.
Yeah. Like bear napping, I only had one problem. You took me to Russia.
It was not Russia.
But I was going to become part of the dancing bear circus.
We did not leave the continental U.S. and you did not go into the circus.
It was very close in debate.
Yes, I took a pic on the first date. I am good.
Anywho, that's not the worst date.
Okay. All right. What is your worst date with me?
My worst date with you was that restaurant we went to with friends and their friends, and everyone had their fingers in everybody's food. Oh my God, that was terrible.
We're counting dinner after one of your events as a date?
It's supposed to be a date.
Was it though?
Yeah.
Like, I had no control over that one.
Oh, yes, you did.
What was that supposed
this will be fun. Let's go do this. This will be enjoyable.
I had a good time. You had the worst possible experience known to humankind.
Well,
because like you hated that whole restaurant concept.
Exactly.
Like you were done before we ordered.
I was done after I gave my drink order.
Oh, yeah, well, but you technically had to fight for it. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
You were done before the drinks were ordered.
That or
okay,
any high class restaurant we've gone to ever, and I'm being serious.
Yeah, that's probably my biggest fail for you is I've continuously tried to take you to nice restaurants and it blows up in my face every single time. I do not care how much, like, this place can have like 1,000,000 5-star reviews. We walk in there on a date and it is gonna be bad.
I mean, if you want, I will name and shame. So we go out for a steak dinner.
This is the first of many. Because it was one of those things.
Yeah. I want to take you out to Outback for a steak dinner. Mm-hmm. Great, honey. That sounds lovely.
Now, notably, I'm working with Princeton, West Virginia here. Okay.
Yes.
This is what I'm working with.
Yeah. So it takes me to the Outback. That really should have been called Outback. Get there. I place my order. It's very simple. I want a steak, blue. I want steamed broccoli with butter, and I want. Did I get a baked potato? I can't remember. Like I ordered one other item. I think it was no.
Oh, no. You didn't start with broccoli. You debated getting broccoli. What you got were the seasonal vegetables, is what you ordered originally.
Yes.
And a baked potato.
Yes.
Okay.
Simple order. Fucking McDonald's can pull this off.
Well, should be able to. Now, there were two issues with your order. Is you ordered, it wasn't just a steak, because this is Outback. You have multiple steaks to choose from.
Right.
Continue.
So 20 minutes in, the manager comes out. Sir, we're sorry, we're out of seasonal vegetables. Fine, I'll take the broccoli. 20 minutes later, sir, I'm sorry, we don't have the broccoli either. What do you have? Like, I don't know, what would you like?
No, see, we tried that twice.
Yeah.
So, what do you have?
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think you ordered a salad. Do what now?
To this day, I haven't gotten both sides yet.
No, well, because I think you tried ordering a salad or just told them not to bother.
I told them not to bother.
Yeah.
Because it was after everything else. So I get up to go to the powder room, and I'm doing my normal business, and I look up on the ceiling, and this is midday.
Oh,
so you can see it was early midday, around 5, 6 o'clock. You could see the outside of the building. Like the sun was in the bathroom.
Like there was a separation between the wall and the ceiling that was not unnoticeable.
No.
Like the two had come apart.
Yep.
And it was just kind of like, meh.
Right.
What you gonna do? It just happens.
Right.
Seemed to be the overall overarching theme there. But yeah. So then you finally did get your food. Like I've already been served. Nothing I ordered had a problem.
Right.
Apparently, they somehow magically made my order. I already got served. They didn't even hold my plate. They just brought mine, and then you continued to wait.
Right.
And so eventually your food finally comes out.
Right.
And it looked good. And that's where it ended for good experiences during this meal.
Yeah. It looked good.
Hard breaking right there.
Yeah. Yeah. Looked good. Steak was overcooked. Looked like it was shoe leather.
Overcooked and cold.
Yeah. And this is a cook.
So all he was getting was a steak and a baked potato.
Yeah.
And I think they chose the runt of baked potatoes. Like this was like an overglorified new potato.
Right.
And I think that was just because they didn't have like the cojones to come back out and say, we're sorry. We're all out of baked potatoes.
Yeah.
Because that's all you had left on your plate.
Yeah. So it was your worst date with me.
Oh, my worst date with you. Like, as in, does it, like, because honestly, I like Outback or any of the other ones that I've tried, I've really tried. It's not like I just randomly open the phone book and go, let's go to this expensive place. Like, I've tried to find really good restaurants that I'm like, okay. Yes, that happened, but I did my research this time.
Mm-hmm.
But does it have to be bad for me, or can it just be a bad date?
A bad date.
Okay, then I gotta go with although I don't think Outback was the worst, just because it was the first one and I still had hope. The world was young and new, and hope was, high. I think it was about the fourth time we attempted this, and it just and that's when I went, I can't take you to a nice restaurant. Like, I'm sorry, I've tried.
Yeah.
And that truly was the point where, and I can't even remember at that point. I just remembered being so disgusted.
Mm-hmm.
Like, because again, this has been a multiple attempt thing.
Mm-hmm.
And like the first time, okay, it happens, you know.
Yeah, and places have a bad night.
Places have a bad night, you know. I didn't do my research, didn't know this place didn't have good reviews or had recently been tanked with bad ones because of like problems. But no, like I've tried to research, I've tried to get ahead, I've tried, and it's like every single time.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, nope. If the average ticket for that restaurant is $100 or more, I cannot take him to it. It will be the worst experience ever. Like, you don't get to have nice things.
No.
Like, I've tried. I sincerely have tried. But no, I think it was because I think we have only, it took me 4 times to learn that.
Right.
Like, statistically, there's no way in hell this should happen 4 times.
Mm-hmm.
On a restaurant with an average 2-person date with drinks.
Mm-hmm.
Like with like a drink per person, like a glass of wine or 2, $100. I can't do it. Once we hit that threshold,
Yeah.
he is the magnet of the worst service conditions humanly imaginable.
Mm-hmm.
It's like I bring him and the place falls to ruin.
And I'm not even that demanding.
No. I'm not saying it's a you problem.
Mm-hmm.
I'm saying I could go to the restaurant alone and it would be fine.
Mm-hmm.
I could go with someone else I know, anyone else I know, and have a wonderful evening.
Mm-hmm.
But for you to go to a restaurant with an average ticket of 100 or more,
Mm-hmm.
it will fall to chaos and ruin when we walk through the door.
Right.
Like they may not have known they had a crack between the wall and the ceiling because it occurred when we parked.
Yes.
Because I'm not kidding, it's like the place falls apart
Mm-hmm.
the minute we hit the parking lot.
Right.
Like I can read good reviews all the way up to the point we go,
Mm-hmm.
and then we get there and it's a total disaster.
Right. And then we've gone to places that have the worst reviews online.
Mm-hmm. Oh, because he loves, and maybe this is your like karmic debt or something. I don't know what you call it at this point. Like your reverse karma. He can go to restaurants in which there's not an ambulance in the parking lot because the food's good. They're just idling there because this is where they most often get called out to. Okay? Like the worst restaurant. The worst restaurant. He can go into, we have a lovely meal.
Uh-huh.
Server, lovely meal. They go above and beyond. It is fantastic.
Uh-huh.
Ambulance idling in the parking lot the whole time for an emergency rescue.
Well, like our new favorite one in Morgantown. There's a buffet right down from Earth Magic. The kids took us there.
Lovely.
The reviews are terrible.
Oh, they're horrible. They're horrible.
Yeah.
Like, yellow caution tape slashed through with like, you know, the Freddy movie logo.
Yeah.
Could not tell you more to avoid this restaurant at all costs. 1 star, we haven't even gotten enough positive reviews for a 1 star.
Right.
He can walk into it. It's wonderful.
Yeah, it was. Delicious food. Servo.
Opposite end.
Waiter was amazing. Like, got picky over tea because one of the girls wanted jasmine, another one wanted oolong. I think they brought them both oolong, and he's like, "Oh no, let me take this back and I will fix it." Wonderful, fresh sushi. Like they were making it and putting it out on the plates.
Like, and it's a fully loaded buffet. They have like 4 tables.
Right.
Like, so there's no noise, there's
Right.
no what, like everything you can imagine could go wrong with, sushi on a buffet, and the whole conditions that it would occur in, none of it.
Yeah.
None of it. On a, like, we're hopeful for a 1-star rating today, which we may have to go back and rate them just so they can achievement
I've rated
unlocked.
them 5 stars.
Okay, good deal. Maybe the only 5-star they ever get.
That's okay. But
We'll
no,
defend it for all time as, like, I swear to God, it was legitimate. The owner didn't do it.
right. But it's a lovely Asian restaurant buffet, well worth the money. But no, what has been we still haven't gotten to your worst date yet. Yeah, Brenda, think is the hiking trip that you got injured on.
Oh, no. No, it takes a lot more than bodily injury. Like, hell, that's just a birthday for me. Like, shit. Like, I encounter birthdays with, like, injury, property damage, insurance claims. Like, my bar's kind of high for a bad day. So now, do we want worst together or worst ever?
Worst together date.
Okay. I've got to go with the date that wasn't,
Okay.
because we couldn't because of the pandemic. We spent the day together. We cooked at home,
Mm-hmm.
and we did a Narcan training class.
Okay.
So I'm going to officially call that the worst date we've ever had.
Right.
And I planned it. I will say I planned that one because it was the pandemic. Okay, I was working with what I had.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm trying for an activity for him, man. I'm trying. All right. There were, like, that was a tall demand for the pandemic, but that was, I will say, the worst.
I'm surprised by that answer.
Really? What did you think it would be?
The year before.
Oh my God, what happened before the pandemic?
Your neck surgery.
Oh, well, that's understandable. Again, insurance claim. It was like a birthday.
Yeah, that I would classify as the. I would.
No. I take mine back. I know you said surgery, and I remembered. Oh my God, no. Worst date I ever went to with you was before my surgery. You spent the entire day going, "Do you have any last requests?" I spent the entire day feeling like tomorrow he's taking me to the kill shelter to be put down.
Well, I was thinking about the date after the hotel, the hospital date afterwards, with that poor little
Okay, that does technically count as a date because you did bring food to the hospital.
Yes, I did, and we were watching a movie.
And granted, keep in mind, I have no problem with this in all technicalities. Like, this was not, like, the fact that you were on a dating app while we're in the hospital with me for my surgery, I have no problem with. I'm fine with this. Go enjoy. I'm fine.
It was encouraged.
You know what I mean? Like, go have fun. We're in a different place. Have fun. I'm cool like that. I should have, however, specified, because it did not occur to me. Maybe try looking for a distance less than 0 feet.
Right.
Because he ended up finding my phlebotomist on a hookup app. then ended up, they were at work.
On the
Apparently on the app during their downtime because, no patients were technically harmed in this. So we're going to assume they were a good little employee and this was a sanctioned break because we don't want to get anyone in trouble. However, this poor phlebotomist walks into my room and proceeds to see me, the patient, and the guy that he is talking to on a hookup app. If I'd been a running sewing machine, he might have taken that blood sample easier. Because he was shaking so bad. By the time he could barely talk, he was about to drop the vials. He's doing his best to what does he know? Am I in trouble? Am I what is going on with my life? I've made horrible choices. I'm gonna burn in hell. Was basically you could read it. You could read it on his face.
Right.
Joe's last request: go play on the dating app.
Yes.
No, this was the next day. Okay, I'd survived. They couldn't kill me at the kill shelter. They tried.
Yeah.
There was a brief moment they tried. There was.
Right.
I'm just saying. What is his name? M. Night Shyamalan would have been proud of the high volume blood splatter involved in my second neck surgery. That's a whole other story.
No, what's even worse is you just added to my reputation there at WVU.
Yeah. I was like, you got to clean that up before he comes in, or I swear to God, I'm not having surgery today, and this is going to end badly. You have got to get that cleaned up. You cannot be present, because what had happened was, and technically you might be able to explain it better, but basically she went to start my IV, and all she said was, well, what she said was, uh-oh. And then she very calmly told me what to expect. I've made a boo-boo. I'm going to have to take this needle out. When I do not be alarmed, but you are briefly going to see a large volume of blood come out of your body. Please don't scream. It is fine. It will be okay. Okay. So, and everything she just said happened. She pulled the needle out. It was, and then she quickly got pressure on it and was like, you are fine, but I have to do this differently. And I'm like, okay, well, since you just splattered yourself, the floor, and the cart over there, we have to clean that up quickly. Because are you bringing my other half back here to see me before surgery? Because if you are, this will end badly. For you. And they're like, okay. And I'm like, yeah, so we got to get this cleaned up. He cannot see this and know what happened before I go back to surgery. He will stop this. And she's like, okay. So she cleaned up as best she could the mess that was, and then she disappeared. You never knew until I came out of surgery and told you later, and we were actually technically, I think, out of the hospital.
Yeah, because I would have went and hunted a nurse down and go, do you need oranges? Do you not know how to put in an IV? I have not been in the floor in 20 years, and I'm quite confident I can put an IV in you. Your veins are better Sharpie than anything. Why she went and blew the vein and went past the vein is beyond me.
And that was the same arm that this poor phlebotomist was trying to get blood from.
Yes.
There's a reason I tell this part. Is because, and that was the arm this poor phlebotomist was having to work with in a low light condition, because I'm guessing WVU doesn't typically like bright flash their patients for blood draws. They're more stealthy than that.
They should be.
And so yeah, between all of it, it was just like you could have threaded a running sewing machine with this poor phlebotomist hand.
Mm-hmm.
But stick a vein and do a blood draw. No. It took forever. And then I'm clueless. I don't know what's going on. I'm being very nice to this guy, like in, my general, like, oh, it's okay, it's no big deal. Please hurry up and stick the right vein. Like, get this over with. But be nice, because if you upset the phlebotomist, this typically only gets worse, not better.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, it's okay, it's fine, just you're doing your best. Good job, buddy.
And I'm making
And
casual
so
conversation. I'm not acting rude or mean or like I don't know you.
that was my first clue something was going on.
Uh-huh.
You were being nice to the phlebotomist, and I'm like, oh, I don't know. And I had no clue. I had no clue, except for that. And it was like, I don't know what's going on here, but I have questions.
Uh-huh.
But again, I'm focused on the phlebotomist. I didn't really catch it in the moment, but when that phlebotomist left the room, I did turn to you and basically said, what was that? And you busted out laughing.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, I should have been more specific. Preferably, I'm okay if you want to go out and have fun with someone, go on a date, whatever you want. I would prefer you not to bend them over the bed. Like, let's be clear. Maybe go past the front door of the hospital to find someone. Just because you could impact my care team.
Well, honey, I looked forward to impacting most of your care team because they need to realize how medicine is done.
And as it just sounded like a dirty joke, he brought it right out of the gutter. Oh, and we have survived the story.
Yes, we have. It was a good time. It wasn't as bad as the last one.
And I didn't call that a bad date per se. I called the night before a bad date.
Well, true. But I was trying to be the caring, adoring husband that knew you were going to be spending 6 months in recovery, at least, with this dumb doctor of yours.
Is there anything you would like to do that you may never be able to do again?
Honey, you're looking at, roughly.
I know. Okay, because Dr. Anal Leakage, and if you're new to that one, this doctor.
Go watch some other episodes. Remember to hit the subscribe button. Moving on.
Okay. Dr. Anal Leakage made this sound a whole lot worse. Because he earned the title Dr. Anal Leakage because he sounds like the back end of a commercial for some benign drug you may or may not need that you're watching in a commercial, where it's like Latisse and you can increase your, eyelashes. And then the back end of the commercial is like may cause sudden death, anal leakage, blah, blah, blah. And just names off like things that like, do you seriously need thicker lashes? Like, this is what you get.
Mm-hmm.
And this is what you could also get with it.
Right.
Like, is this worth that? Like, I do not think that this is worth like anal leakage.
Right.
Like, come on, guys, get it together. This should not be a marketable product.
Yeah.
But no, this is every conversation I had with that doctor. I swear to God, from the first one on, it was like the back end of a damn commercial.
Right. And then he orders this bone generator.
Oh yeah, bone growth stimulator. That was not the best thing ever, at all whatsoever.
No.
Like, not a fan. Personally, not a fan. 0 out of 10. Would not recommend.
Right. I called it as soon as I heard that he had ordered this, because at this time I had stepped away from the case because I was intimidating his doctors.
Well, it was like the whole thing wasn't going well. And it was just like, I'm just trying to get out of this. Like, just get me to post-surgical recovery and I'll be fine.
Right.
And it was like, this was a long, horrible road.
Right.
Oh, Brenda, we're glad you enjoyed the fun night with stories.
Yes, we're glad you enjoyed it. But no, it's been kind of fun. But no, go out there, use a spoon a week to look for prospects.
Yep. No more.
No more.
No more than a spoon a week.
Right.
I have a feeling Joe is getting even when Aeson has to get surgery. Really? No.
One, Aeson refuses to get spinal surgery because I haven't seen a successful one yet that I'm impressed with. So they can take that and shove it up their places.
But now, will he have a memorial service that is luau and hell themed?
Yes. I will arrange it beforehand so that you can at least get it pulled off.
No, not that. Like, I don't need vengeance. Telling the story is vengeance. Because it's an awkward story.
Right.
Like, it really, it twists some nerves there. Usually we tell that story and people just get this ungodly squeamishness. Like,
yeah.
Like, you've broken all the rules.
Yeah, I normally do.
Yeah. That's our relationship. We're fine.
Yeah.
Like, I found it hilarious.
Yeah.
Like, I did. I truly found it hilarious.
All right. But we will save your Valentine's Day after next surgery story for the station meeting this month.
Oh, okay. Alrighty.
All right, guys. We will talk at you later. Now, speaking of our station meeting, you get to come into that because you're a barista. We want to take a moment to thank our baristas.
Of course, we want to thank Beverly Walker, Minka G, Kathy, Mary Winfield, Brenda, Shannon C, Shannon D, Lady Gwendolyn, Charles Shaw, Tracy Van, Caitlin Bell, and Devin. If you'd like to learn more about us, the show, or how you too can become a Patreon sponsor and receive all the wonderful benefits our baristas receive, please visit us at pcspnetwork.com.
And I'm making a note of that one for the compound board. All right, guys. We'll see you later. On Sunday, you'll hear Al Notion's going, bye, y'all.
Bye.
What's that? Request a wake at the bar with a band and stories.
Brenda's final request is a wake at a bar with a band and stories. Fair enough.
Fair enough. All right, guys. We'll see you later. Bye.
Bye.
Hey everybody, Lady Gwendolyn here, and as a